Hello and welcome to GXI 360. Today I'll be showing you my 360 virtual reality workflow from start to finish. First, organize my files, then stitch them in Insta 360 Stitcher, create a log file, move over to MistikaVR, and then move over to Premiere Pro, edit my audio. If it's ambisonic, I'll edit using Reaper. I will export using media encoder and then upload to YouTube or Oculus. Came back from the Wilderness Festival where I had an opportunity to shoot in 360, so I thought it would be a good idea to show you guys exactly how I edit from start to finish and my general workflow. Some things may not work for you. You may choose to use a different process, but this is generally my workflow and what I stick to because it works best for me and it produces the best results. I was shooting on the Insta360 Pro 2 with an ambisonic microphone, the Zoom H2N, shooting in 8K 3D 30 frames per second. Now there's a few things that I generally consider before shooting. Is always my environment, what equipment would I need, is there a power source, and I try to plan as best as possible because shooting in 360, the more you plan ahead, the easier it is and the less headache you will have. So to get started, I'll just quick show you what my folder looks like. So here is a folder, an example of all the files. The Insta360 has 6 lenses, and then we have a log file for each lens and a preview, and then the project file which holds all the data about this scene. So typically what I try to do is on a shoot, if I'm far away, I will take a laptop just so that I can offload and organize my files, but I'll always edit back at my workstation just because I know it has the power that's capable for rendering and editing such large files. So once I've got my files organized, I'll move over to Insta360 Stitcher, and these are some of the files that I have here. And what you see now is 1 lens out of 6. So I select monoscopic. If I was shooting specifically for VR headsets, then I'll choose stereo. But because the main intent of this footage is to be going up to YouTube, so that everyone has access to it, I've chosen monoscopic. And then I always select my stitching mode as optical flow rather than new optical flow, only because in the past choosing new optical flow, there's been some issues with the footage. This may be due to Insta360 firmware, but I find that optical flow always provides the best results. Sampling type is fast. I'll be using my processor to render the footage, or if I was to render in Insta360, I'll be using my processor to do that. And then I always select smooth stitch, original offset selected, and flow state stabilization is not specifically needed in this case because my footage is static, but if I was moving around, then I would always make sure that it's set. Fast is type for encoding speed. And generally what I'm doing in Insta360 Stitcher is I'm looking through my footage to select my start and end points. I don't really edit the color and brightness too much, but I may make some changes if it's extremely overexposed. And then what I'll do is I make sure my resolution is 8K to match what I was actually shooting in, and I will then export the audio file separately so that I can edit that later. And then what I'll do, if I'm to use MistikaVR, which gives me more depth and more range for editing, I'm able to make sure there's nothing crossing over the stitch lines, and if there is, I can resolve those problems. So what I'll do is I will set and preview. So what this does is it will create a log file for me, almost like a snippet of data about my stitch that I've set up. So I look at the stitch and I think, okay, this looks pretty good, and I'll press save and apply. Now this creates a log file for me, and this log file can be found in my log folder underneath Insta360 Stitcher, sorry, and then your log file. So here I have my preview log. Then I'll move over to MistikaVR, which I've already started here. And what I'm going to do is, from my folder, what I will do is, once I have my files, I will be dragging over from 1 to 6 into MistikaVR. So I need to ensure that the files are in order. Then I will go to stitch, this area here, and import stitch. So when I'm importing my stitch, I'm selecting that log file. If I select this, and I'll find my log file, and then I will select this preview. So this is the preview for that file that you saw on Insta360 Stitcher. Once I've done that, it will apply this data to this file, and I will make sure to select, I will select use Insta360 Pro Collaborate, and then this will merge my files, and I make sure to use optical flow just to make sure everything's correct. So I have this file rendering here, and this is where I tweak everything. So as you can see, the scene is not very busy. There's not a lot of subjects in the scene, so I don't need to worry about loads of people crossing the stitch lines. But here I have moved the cameras a little bit, the stitch lines, just because this area here is looking very warped. So I just done a little bit of editing here, and then what I'll do to edit is in this mode here, I will add an edge point. And for example, if I'm adding an edge point here, this enables me to move this lens slightly if there was someone crossing over a stitch line, that I can make sure it's not blurry, and just ensuring the best possible experience for the viewer. So the number one thing whenever creating 360 footage is we just want to ensure the best possible experience for the user, and because obviously we want more and more people to use VR. We want them to familiarize themselves with using VR, and they're not going to do that if the experience is not very good. So I always add this step into my workflow. If I'm creating something for social media using 360, I won't really add this step, because these details are not going to be obvious when you're watching 360 footage in a 2D format. And also what I'll do, before I render this out, I will match my color in my scene, so that we just have a nice balanced level of color throughout the scene. And then with MistikaVR, it enables you to do a lot more in detail 360 editing. So I've edited my footage now, and that's rendered out. So that was just that one clip. So now what I'm going to do is, once I've done that and I'm happy with everything, I'm then going to move over to Premiere Pro, and this is where we get into the main chunk of editing. So I'm not going to be showing you how to edit the ambisonic audio, just because that will take a very long time, and that would have to be a separate video. But what I'm going to do now is just show you how I piece my 360 footage together, and then how I optimize it for the best quality for YouTube or Oculus headsets. I haven't tried editing for any other headset, just because I feel like Oculus, the process to it works so well, and the fact that you can push out a lot of power. For example, I use the Oculus Quest 2, which enables me to so I'm going to label this as test. The the Oculus Quest 2 enables me to push out a lot of power whilst being able to use it on the go. For example, if I have to show an example to a client, or I'm using the headset as reference, I can detach that away from my PC compared to the Rift S, and then they're able to get an idea of what I shot, or if it's location scouting or something like this, I'm able to give them the full immersion of the scene while still being able to come back to my PC and plug it in and receive the full power to receive the highest optimal quality of my footage. So we're in Premiere. We'll just make a test file, test project here. Right. Now, what I want to do first is get that footage that I was just rendered out from, okay, what I just rendered out. So I've rendered out quite a few files here. And here is my test footage. To optimize your workflow, I would suggest making proxies for all of your files, so that you can ingest a proxy so that you can edit more smoothly. I've already created my proxies and made presets for them, so that I can ingest them into my video files so that I can begin editing very quickly. So before I drag that over, I'll go to Proxy, create proxies, and I've already got my preset here, which is 4K 360 mono HEVC. And I'll press OK. And this, what it should do is it will now ingest the proxy. So it's literally converting my 8K footage into 4K footage, which will enable me to edit more smoothly. So as you can see here, I've got the tripod legs in my scene, which is not what I want. So I want to remove this out. So to do this, what I'll do is add my screenshot tool. Oh, my screenshot tool is here. And I'll take a screenshot of that. And let's just call this test screen. And I want to collate all my files into the same place, just so that I can keep it organized. But as you can see, I do need to organize a lot of my stuff. And the more organized your PC is, and all your files and data management and all of that stuff, the easier it is for you to work. So I'm going to label this as patch. So I would highly recommend on a regular basis, make sure to filter your PC, the files, keep it nice and organized, because that is what you should be doing. And I haven't shown you the best example here. So I've got my patch and I press OK. So whilst that's ingesting, we can close down MistikaVR now. We'll save that. We'll save that as test. Okay. And then we'll close that down. So we've got our patch. Now what I need to do is open up Photoshop. So you see, there's quite a few. There's quite a few programs that we need to use, and from start to finish, to get the best quality, it does take a little while. So you do need to have patience. And I'll go to open it. Ooh. We'll go to our patch. Right, so now what I'm doing is I'm replacing, I'm essentially just removing the tripod from the scene. Now, if I had a monopod, it would be more than likely I wouldn't have to do this. So I am essentially making more work for myself here, and I would suggest that you, I would suggest that you get a monopod for filming 360, because you want as little things in the scene that shouldn't be there as possible. If anything, you want none. So because of that, I'm having to do this step here now. So I'll go to 3D spherical panorama, and let me select my layer. 3D spherical panorama, new panorama from selected layer. Okay, so let me just double check this has ingested before I continue. Okay, so now you can see here, it shows that our proxy is attached. So now we're working with 4K footage, and then we can remove that before we render. So here, I'm just using my arrow tool, my select tool. What is this actually called? Let's see, move tool. So I'm using my move tool for the camera control. And as you can see down here, looking downwards, I have a tripod in the scene that I don't want. I don't mind too much about the power supply, but ideally I want to move this tripod just because it doesn't look very nice. So I'll go over to my spot healing tool, and then I will remove the tripod just by selecting yeah, I'm literally essentially just removing the tripod. So we need to remove that out of the scene, just so. And also when I'm removing the tripod, often you can add an nadir into your scene here. You can do this here, or you can do this in Premiere. It doesn't really matter at this point where you add in nadir. I just feel like adding it in Premiere is a bit smoother after I've removed this. From experience, adding your nadir at the end in Premiere is much easier. But you may want to create your nadir in Photoshop or Illustrator, because sometimes the client will want branding to the film. They may want their logo to be at the bottom of the video, just so that whenever the viewer is looking downwards, it's a good place to position a title of who's created it, or where the video comes from, so that people can like, comment and share or follow. So yeah, we've got, I don't know what this is. It seems like some sort of water stain here. So we're just going to remove that out, and once that's done, we can crack straight back on with our process. Now you can see already, if you haven't gone through this process before, it will probably take a little bit of time figuring out what to do. So that's the reason I'm making this, just to help any 360 creators to speed up their process, and mainly just to ensure quality. Okay, so do you know, I might as well go ahead and remove the whole cable. So we don't want our cable in there. We'll just leave that there. But someone, they may look down and think, oh, that's a bit odd. Where is the rest of that cable? Which makes it a little bit unrealistic. But yeah, I'm happy with that now. So our tripod is removed, and then I'm going to select spherical map again. And as you can see, the legs of the tripod are not there. But now what I need to do is select this as a patch. So you need to remember kind of where the legs of your tripod were, or the things that you've removed. So I've removed the cable. So somewhere around here, I'm going to create a guideline that I want to go here, around here. And then obviously you need to consider if people are crossing over this, it may make the footage look very strange. So you need to think, obviously you would have reviewed your scene and looked at, are people crossing these lines, are people too close to the camera, am I able to fix this or resolve this? That's why ideally you want to have a monopod, because you don't want to have to edit this out in post. But for this example, I have used a 3-legged tripod and I've had to remove that. So we then go over to a mask tool. I'll select gradient, and all I'm going to do is draw a line here, and this creates a gradient. So now I will use this as my patch. So I'll file, save as, and let's put this back in where we started. So I'll just call this test patch, PATCH 001, and I'll make sure that is a PNG of the highest quality, of course. Okay, so that's done. We can, I won't close Photoshop yet actually. All right, media browser. So we go back into Premiere, and I'm going to, I should have, you know what, organized these files and folders just so that it's easy for me to click between. And then what I'll do here is I'll drag my patch into the scene. Let's get in here. Just drag this across our scene. Okay, so now you can see the tripod legs have been removed. Okay, I'm not going to do this for every file. This is just an example to show you exactly what I'm doing. And I should be able to watch through this now quite easily, because as you can see there, I did walk across the scene slightly a little bit. So I'm going to have to fix that. If you have an issue where there are a lot of people crossing your patch, then I could always do this in After Effects and use content aware to remove that. But this is just for this example. I'm not going to worry about it too much, especially as that there's not many people in my scene after that point. So what I could just do is, where did I cross it? Let's have a look. As I'm walking, yep, I go out there. So what I'll do is just, I'll cut there and I'll remove this from my scene completely. Right, so now that I've done that, let's drag that across. I've got snap on, okay, so now I've done that. That's where my scene starts. And if I want to have a look at it in VR, I could connect it to the VR headset, or make sure that it knows that it's 360. So just be mindful of that. If you are adding your proxy in, just make sure it knows that it's a 360 scene. And I should be able to play through this now. Obviously this is a reduced quality, and I could view this in my VR headset as well. So sometimes what I'll do is, I would suggest, if you are editing 360, you want to edit with your VR headset, because then you can see what the end user is going to be seeing as well. So that's the scene there. And yeah, and because I exported the file, we're not working with the audio right now. So I can toggle this back off. Right now, so that's the main part of it. Now, what I will do is I would nest these two together, because I don't think we're going to have to do anything else with that. So that's merged together. And then if I wanted to put a title in, right, let me show you how to do that. So I'm just going to choose a logo quickly. Where's my logo? I'm just going to quickly get a logo, I'm gonna add in my what do you call it, ident or splash screen. Okay, so I'm gonna drag my splash screen into there. Now if I'm working with this will apply the same as this theory or what I'm going to show you now is the same that is applied to any 2D image. So I have my splash screen here. Yep, I have my splash screen here, and then what I'm going to do is go to effects, and then I'll tap VR, select plane to sphere, and as you can see, it warps, it bulges. So now if I look at that in VR, this will be what it looks like. And then I could duplicate that so that if the user looks behind, it will also be behind them as well. But I'm just gonna have one for now. So this will play essentially like this in virtual reality. I'll show you what it looks like. So that's actually playing, the viewers looking around, and then our scene will start like that. Okay, show you is transitions. So let's go to our let's select another file. In your project file, attach the proxy to it first, and then drag it onto your sequence, and then our VR video will start, and I'll be able, the same concept applies that with my splash screen. If I want to add titles in here, for example, if I wanted to indicate the people in the scene or the company or who I'm working with or the location, then I'll create, what I'll do is create my titles in Illustrator or Photoshop, and then I'll drag them over into my scene and make sure to switch from plane to sphere. So I'm adding those 360 dimensions to my title or graphic image. I've also got the tripod legs there, so I would have to go through that process again to remove those legs. And with this one, I know that nobody was walking through here, and this is a scene outside of the tent. But really now what I'm doing is showing you the transition. So when somebody is viewing VR, in our traditional film, we may have just a simple cut. I don't want to jolt the viewer suddenly. So what we want to do is slowly introduce the next scene so that the experience is smooth and they don't feel uncomfortable. So in order to do that, I generally, I've got VR transitions here, but I just try to keep it very simple. So I may add light leaks to my scene here. I light leaks here, so I just want it to come in a little bit earlier, and that is very bright, isn't it? So let's reduce the intensity of that. We'll just reduce the intensity of this to save your project, because I have a feeling. Yeah, another thing is always save your project. Or you can just have your settings to save every 1 or 2 minutes. It's quite bright, and I just want to reduce the intensity of this. I just want to reduce this down. I don't want it to be too intense for our viewer. Yeah, we don't want it too bright, so I'm just going to increase the base hue there. And now if I check this again, yeah, see, that's much nicer, you know. It's nicer, and it's not so intense for the viewer. Check my transition again, and you can use a different transition if you like, but the same principle applies, is that, yeah, you don't want it to be overbearing or jolt the user. Even still, it could be a little bit bright, but for the example, as long as you have it in your mind that you want to keep your transitions smooth, so just to introduce the new scene, and then it kind of will let the user know, okay, something's happening here. Now we're introducing a new scene. And as I said, I'll remove these tripod legs here. And then it comes to exporting my footage. So now I've got this. I always, let me just save this as well. I always export my media with media encoder. I'll just go ahead and render that out. It shouldn't take too long. And that's it. Yeah, so that's from start to finish, pretty much how I edit 360 footage. There's quite a few steps, there's quite a lot to consider, remember, and things to do. But if you implement this workflow, you're able to give the best experience possible. And then secondly is, when you're in the field, think about how you're going to offload and organize your files, because the last thing you want to do is run out of memory and be running around frantically and then having to organize everything before you start editing. So you want to prepare yourself that when you are ready to edit and your post-production process, you can just go straight into doing that. And what you'll do is get to work straight away. Make sure to convert your footage to proxies if you're working with 8K footage. Detailed editing of the actual scene in MistikaVR. This gives me a lot more tools. It gives me a lot more. I can work on the 360 footage in detail. Even though Premiere has a lot of features as well, I just like to do it in MistikaVR, especially for the stitch lines and to avoid blurring subjects. Edited in Premiere. So in Premiere, I'm just more building the film together, but before that I've done all the correction and editing, and then I'm just piecing it together in Premiere Pro, where I'll add my transitions. And then once I've done in Premiere, I'll add my titles, graphics. If I was editing audio, I would spend quite a lot of time editing the audio, making sure that the sounds are coming from the correct angles and there's nothing that's overpowering for the viewer. And then once I've done that, I render it out, and then I either upload to YouTube or Oculus Media. So to follow us on Oculus Media, alternatively, you can follow us on YouTube, GXI360, and yeah, if you don't have a VR headset, you can always use your phone to watch all of our 360 content on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.